Here it is, the new Predator Accuracy. We've looked at the history of the Predator in part 1. If you've missed it, make sure you go check that out. But now we're going to go and find out more on the tech and design of the brand new Predator Accuracy and see how they were tested in their lab.
All of us are very heavily involved in all of the different milestones. It always starts off by providing a brief to design and development from the marketing side. So based on a consumer need, based on the market trends, we provide that brief and then we hand it over to design and to development. We then take it on. That's the starting point. Next step would then be different iterations of creation, which starts off, I'm sure Jose can explain a lot better, but starts off with the ideation and then turns into the first proto and next proto and continues from there.
So we start with kind of the lead shoes, obviously. From a design side, we start bringing some kind of conceptual ideas into the table, and from there we start like taking up elements in terms of like performance, obviously. But I would say we start with kind of a lead shoes, and then we kind of go down into the takedowns.
So yeah, every time there's a new sample, a new iteration coming from design or the business unit, we test it here, test it against former Predators, against competition also, and yeah, a few hundred times for this one for sure, at least.
So we really wanted to kind of focus on like the performance element of the boot. We look into 23 into like, you know, how can we maximize like the kind of a striking ability and the whole accuracy topic. So we really wanted to just highlight basically like the visual area where we actually need that and rubber element in order to kind of score more goals.
I tested some rubber elements before the boot was even made. Some flat sheets of rubber that I can put also on the rubber leg. And I think that there were six, seven different versions just of the rubber, and then there's the configuration on the boot. That's also a few versions of that, I think 3 different at that time. So yeah, I would say around 10 in total, about just for that shoe.
Yeah, and you said that there was like, you've removed a few from this side. What was like kind of thinking behind that?
Yes, so when you use the rubber leg, there's a particular way of kicking. And the way you try to kick to have the biggest impact of the rubber is to have a swerve kick. So when you try to put a lot of rotation and spin on the ball, and to do that you have, on that setting, you have to kick from that part of the shoe. And when we think about the way players are kicking, that's coming from insights that we have also. Most of the players tend to kick with that part of the boot and use this part more for dribbling. And there was a bit more rubber at the beginning, and what we tried to do is to remove a bit in this part to make sure we're focusing on the kicking, because we don't have much impact on the kicking with that part and don't impair the dribbling abilities and stumble over the ball when it's too grippy, for example. Predator is actually really important because the main thing we have about rubber that is the grip, and you know that the grip is different in different playing conditions. When the pitch is wet, your boot gets wet, and you probably already played with boots that are too slippery and you can't give the swerve to the ball. As a right back myself, crossing a lot the ball, whipping the ball, that's tough sometimes to get the right grip. And what we do with the Predator is that we try to get the best consistency in between dry and wet conditions. So to make sure that they perform the exact same way and that you don't have to adapt your skills to the conditions, that the boot adapts itself and that you don't have to do anything yourself.
One thing that
maybe didn't change, which makes things a little bit harder, is that the outsole and the internal works here, that hasn't changed between the edge. So that's something just with our process that we wouldn't really change that in facelift. So where we started was, okay, rubber, one thing, height, another, and overall the vamp material. So one thing you can clearly see is we reduced the rubber, we pulled the height down, and the biggest one actually was the hybrid touch, the new hybrid touch coming back into play, of that significantly saves a lot of weight. And then we're looking at what padding, internal reinforcements, where can we optimize, when can we not, and that accumulates to bring the weight down basically. Yeah.
That color also brings an element of distinguished expectation between the different iterations. So we always try to make sure that we're not following up with the same colors back to back. Even if it works for consumers, we want to provide freshness and newness and give it its own identity through color. I believe we've all played in it, so it's a little bit of a difficult question in terms of how iconic do we think it is. We think it's very iconic. However, I'd say it's more important in terms of the conversation that we have with consumers and pro players who know it, love it, aspire to be the face of it. And I think for me, that spells better than anything else how iconic the Predator franchise actually is.
To echo as well, that outside of here, I believe it's one of the most iconic boots out there in the market, but then also inside here, it's one of our longest running franchises. It's one of the faces of the brand, and I think everyone, whenever a new one releases, whether it's a brand new or just a facelift, everyone's got their eyes on it basically. So adds a little bit of extra pressure in our job as well. Yeah,
I mean, not to repeat my colleagues, but obviously we're super happy with having such a franchise within the brand, and in the end, if not the most, is probably one of the most iconic, not just football boots, but shoes of the brand and in the market.
I hope that we get to make better boots as we develop them. So I would rank it first as it is to play. I'm also a bit nostalgic, big Zizou fan. So yeah, for me the Absolute or the Mania are my go-to, but I'm not sure I would play them today because obviously they're not. There's a lot lighter, probably a lot better in terms of feeling. But I'm a sentimental, so.
We found out all we need to know tech-wise about the Predator accuracy. All we need to do now is test them out on pitch for part 3.